Hi, my name is Bea Cupin. You are watching Rappler, and I'm in Puerto Princesa City in Palawan because just a few days ago, on April 4, we joined a Philippine Coast Guard and Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources mission to install 10 payaos or fish aggregating devices in Rosul Reef that's within the vicinity of Recto Bank in the West Philippine Sea. Now, bear this in mind. Yung Recto Bank, mga more or less 80 nautical miles away lang siya from the coast of Palawan, which means it is well within the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, which also means that it's the Filipino who should be able to exclusively exploit the natural resources in that area, as well as Filipinos having the responsibility to take care of the resources in that area. Now, during the operation, sinamahan kami ng 25 na fisher folk, mostly from Quezon Town, here in Palawan, in the province of Palawan. During the whole time, halos from 6 a.m. until natapos eventually yung pag-install ng mga payaw dun sa Rosul Reef. There were 2 China Coast Guard ships that were constantly harassing, tracking the movements of both the ship that we were on, yung BRP Lapu-Lapu ng BIFAR, pati na rin ng BRP Cabra, the PCG ship that was also part of the mission. On top of that, the 2 CCG ships, China Coast Guard ships, were constantly harassing by passing through the 25 Filipino fisher folk boats deployed during the mission. Now, just imagine this, no? Yung mga Filipino na boat na andun sa Rosul Reef ay mga bangka lamang. Not even the really big kinds, but medyo mga maliliit na bangka ng mga fisher folk natin galing sa Quezon Town dito sa Palawan. And imagine the scale of that compared to the CCG ships na nagbantay, nagmasid, nang haras sa mga Pilipino na andoon during the installation of payaos. Now, this happened despite the fact na yung BRP Lapu-Lapu at yung BRP Cabra ay nag-issue ng radio challenge sa China, reminding the CCG ships that this was in Recto Bank, again, well within the EEZ of the Philippines, and to add to that, nasa continental shelf din ng Pilipinas yung Recto Bank. We were told, by the way, na before the start of the mission in Recto Bank, in the wee hours of the morning, the BRP Lapu-Lapu, yung BFAR na ship, got a radio challenge from this time a China Navy ship. We were also told later on after the mission, the PCG informed us na apparently this Navy ship of China was only 3 nautical miles away from the BRP Lapu-Lapu when the challenge was issued. Now, this is part of a bigger pattern of Chinese behavior in the West Philippine Sea. Yung CCG 215, so again, yung dalawang barko ng CCG na andoon sa Rosul Reef during this April 4 mission, ay yung CCG vessel 21551 and 21556. These are the smaller, but when I say smaller, I don't really mean small, but they're smaller in comparison to other China Coast Guard vessels. But because they're smaller, they're more agile, they're more maneuverable. Usually, itong mga barkong to, ginagamit sila sa Ayungin Shoal to harass the Filipino vessels that try to bring supplies to the BRP Sierra Madre. Now, sabi ni PCG spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, this shows that China not only claims practically all of the features in the West Philippine Sea, but is not above harassing Filipino vessels, not just in flashpoints that we know of, such as Ayungin Shoal and Scarborough Shoal. Yun naman mas malapit yung sa Zambales, but even in Recto Bank, which is so much more closer to Palawan than other features na flashpoints of tensions. Now, yung nakausap natin yung mga fishermen, specifically the fisher folk from Quezon Town, sabi nila they do experience harassment occasionally when they fish in Recto Bank. Minsan daw galing sa CCG or sa China Coast Guard, minsan galing mismo sa mga kapwa mangingisda na Chinese. Although they also pointed out na kung Chinese fishermen fish there, napakalaki ng mga ships nila compared to the bangka na dala-dala ng mga Filipino fisher folk. Pero pumupunta pa rin sila doon. Bakit? Sabi nila, within the waters of Quezon or yung usual na mas malapit na fishing areas ng Quezon, medyo mahirap na daw to get a good yield. So they brave the medyo treacherous, dangerous journey all the way to Recto Bank. Recto Bank for an ordinary bangka will probably take 24 hours minimum, usually more than 24 hours to reach Recto. So bakit Recto? Again, ito na daw yung pinakamalapit na feature. And to think, yun na yung malapit ha, mga more than 24 hours na biyahe, dire-diretso yun. And same, it goes also, like this is also applicable to other fishing communities, not just Quezon Town in Palawan. Marami sa kanila lumalakbay na ng mas malayo than they normally would. Or kumbaga parang kung sa further daily sustenance, kaya nila dati na mas malapit, ngayon they have to venture farther and farther out into the sea kasi paubos na yung medyo masagana na catch for the fishermen. Recto Bank is also believed to be where a vast deposit of oil and gas and minerals can be found. There are already existing na mga service contracts pero na-pause ito noong 2022. There have been calls for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and his administration to push forward with yung mga explorations for oil in Recto Bank and if needed, for Philippine government vessels to escort these private companies so that they can do surveys nga in Recto. But again, we go back to the April 4 activity. No? At the end of the day, Recto Bank is crucial for Filipino fisherfolk among the most impoverished in the country kasi essential ito for their daily existence. Philippine response, baka nag-iisip kayo, so what is the Philippines doing? Now, the AFP Chief General Romeo Bronner Jr. has said in the past, parang ano bang magiging response ng military given this repeated pattern of harassments by China. They did say na the directive of the President is of maximum tolerance. Commodore Tariela practically said as much na kung baga we will not resort to violence as well in response to claim what is ours. But what they do want to do is to create an environment kung saan Filipino fisherfolk feel safe venturing out in our own EEZ, dun sila mangisda. And I think that's also what the payaos are trying to do, no? Parang giving Filipino fisherfolk or creating an environment kung saan mas madali for them to fish in Recto Bank, may incentive for them to fish in Recto Bank. But of course, this also means we need to increase yung maritime patrols natin, not just in Recto Bank, but in other features, Scarborough man yan, Ayungin man yan, for our fishermen who again have to venture farther and farther out into sea just to exist and to maintain their livelihoods. Now, two things are happening this weekend and the following week. Dito sa Westcom, actually sa Palawan, the Western Command Base in Palawan will be busy because there is a quadrilateral exercise between the Philippines, Japan, Australia, and the United States. Wala pang specific na areas na sinasabi ang Defense Department ng Pilipinas, pero ang sinabi lamang ay from Westcom to Nolcom. So Westcom covers Palawan, Nolcom covers Northern Luzon. We have no specific information yet, but this could include even parts of Batanes kasi dati naging staging area na rin yan ng mga joint operations. But I think in Batanes was for the US and the Philippines. Another event, but this time diplomatic, that we look forward to next week is that first leaders trilateral meeting between US President Joe Biden, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio, and President Marcos. Now, we've already said that officials of the different countries have already said that the South China Sea is definitely expected to be a topic during this trilateral meeting in Washington, D.C. Now, ang daming discussions ng military action, ng pag-assert ng ating rights sa West Philippine Sea. But I think if you're still watching this all the way, what you need to remember is that when we talk about sovereign rights, it might seem like a fairly difficult concept to grasp, but bear this in mind na lang, no? When we talk about sovereign rights, we can simplify it into this. It is our right, and in the case of the fisher folk in Quezon Town, it's their right to enjoy the bounties of our very own waters without having to fear instances of harassment from Chinese or any other sources. That's it so far here from Puerto Princesa. We will be giving you updates. So for updates, you can download the Rappler app. If you're specifically interested in talk of defense and security and foreign affairs, there is a communities chat that specifically talks about that. We'll be flashing the URL or the specific name of that chat room somewhere here. So if you want to talk to me or other thought leaders about foreign affairs, defense, and security, you can check that out. If you want to talk about politics, there are community chat channels where you can talk about politics, faith, religion, even pop music if you're tired of, if you want a break from hearing about news about the West Philippine Sea. But I do hope that you keep following not just Rappler but other news sites as well. Stay informed when it comes to developments in the West Philippine Sea. After all, this affects every single one of us in the Philippines as well. Again, this has been Bea Cupin, reporting from Puerto Princesa City, and you have been watching Rappler. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.